The first few episodes of Rick and Morty were strongly episodic, similar to other sitcoms. Even though each one could be regarded as a classic, they had little to no connection with each other. However, everything changed after arguably the most important episode of the series, Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. This was the episode where we first see the Citadel. It showed us how truly vast the Rick and Morty universe is, ending perfectly by introducing one of the most important and popular characters in all of adult animation, Evil Morty. His debut made the entire fanbase go wild, and ever since, fans have been eager to see more of him. After the first season, perhaps the most important one was the third season, the season where Evil Morty returns. It's no wonder that the Rick Lantis mix-up is rated as the highest episode of the show so far, even though it barely features our Rick C-137 and Morty Prime. This episode ends with one of the best cliffhangers of the series, once again involving Evil Morty. After that episode, Evil Morty solidified his position as the main villain. However, he wasn't the only important character introduced that season. Rick Prime also made an appearance, but at the time, people didn't consider Rick Prime as crucial to the lore as Evil Morty, since, according to Rick, he was just part of a simulated backstory. Everything changed again in the season 5 finale. We saw Evil Morty once more, and this time learned his true motives, which made many people sympathize with him even more. In the end, all he wanted was to escape. He wasn't necessarily as evil as some of the other characters introduced throughout the series. In that same episode, we also learned the truth about Rick's backstory and how Rick Prime is the reason Rick C-137 became who he is. After Evil Morty seemingly fulfilled his goal, and it became clear he wasn't truly evil, it seemed the story would shift from him to Rick Prime. But Rick and Morty Season 7 caught everyone off guard once again by wrapping up two of the show's longest-running plot lines, Evil Morty and Rick Prime mid-season. This left many wondering who might fill Rick Prime's role as the main antagonist of the series, and there are several candidates. One possibility is Doofus Jerry, arguably the most famous character from comic series. He made his debut in the 21st chapter of the comics. In that chapter, Jerry Smith stole Rick's portal gun and traveled to dimension J19 Zeta 7 to meet Doofus Rick. They went to Percy Pussland, a cat-themed amusement park owned by Doofus Jerry. When we saw an alternate dimension Jerry on his surveillance camera, he had both Jerry and Doofus Rick brought to his office. He showed Jerry how much he achieved, even being the definition of success in the dictionary, and that he was the richest man on Earth. When he overheard Doofus Rick mention interdimensional travel, he offered to trade his successful life to Jerry in exchange for the technology. When Jerry refused, he was punched in the face. Doofus Jerry then forced Doofus Rick at gunpoint to open a portal to Jerry's home dimension. Once there, he met Beth and instantly fell in love with her. He charmed both Beth and Summer, though Morty immediately recognized him as a fraud. Doofus Jerry threatened to kill Beth and Summer in their sleep if Morty said anything, so Morty turned to Rick for help. However, Rick proved useless against Doofus Jerry, who beat him up and declared himself superior. In Rick and Morty issue number 22, Rick tells Morty how he had since tried several times to kill Doofus Jerry, but failed. He showed Morty his last attempt, the neutrino bomb he had made in the pilot episode, but Morty wouldn't let him use it. Doofus Jerry then appeared and revealed that he had already disarmed the bomb. Both Rick and Morty tried attacking him, but he avoided every blow. Later that day, he was apprehended by a group of Ricks sent by the Council of Ricks and brought to the Citadel. Once all the Ricks learned he was a Doofus Jerry, they mocked Rick for losing to him. Because they underestimated him, they allowed Doofus Jerry to enter the genetic restructurer, which he used to modify the pheromones his body expelled to be poisonous to all Ricks. He managed to kill several Ricks this way before taking a seat on the council and declaring himself the master of the Ricks. In issue number 23, Doofus Jerry had taken over the entire Citadel and was surrounded by Beths from various dimensions. He had also forced the Ricks to build a gigantic golden statue of himself in the Citadel's center and ordered them to address him as the Miggity 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 Mac, shooting anyone who failed to do so. He still desired the first Beth he saw, but the Ricks were unable to locate her Rick. When the Smith family and Doofus Rick flew to the Citadel in their giant robot, Doofus Jerry entered his own giant robot, the golden statue from earlier. They fought briefly until Doofus Jerry's robot ripped the head off of Rick's robot, containing Rick, the Smiths, and Doofus Rick, and threw it into the Citadel. Doofus Jerry rushed to the wreckage and proposed to Beth, asking her to rule the multiverse with him. She blatantly rejected him, so he pulled a gun on Beth and Summer. Jerry tried to protect them but was easily overpowered. Just as he was about to kill the Smiths, the portal juice Doofus Rick had made earlier opened a new portal through which a giant worm emerged and killed Doofus Jerry. Jerry. Rick disintegrated the worm, and the council was then in his debt. At first glance, Doofus Jerry appearing in the series might not make sense right now since the Citadel was destroyed after Season 5. However, it makes its return for the third time in Season 8, which opens up the possibility for Doofus Jerry to debut in the main series. The idea of an overpowered Jerry storyline is intriguing, and if we look at the views on my videos involving Jerry being overpowered, we can see that fans really enjoy the concept and are eager to see it in action. Also, the early and sudden departure of Cronenberg Jerry, undoubtedly the strongest version of Jerry that has appeared in the animated series, further increases the chances of Doofus Jerry finally making an appearance. That said, I feel like this character could be effective for an episode or two, but I don't think he could replace Rick Prime as the show's main antagonist. Our original main villain, Evil Morty, still seems like a better fit for that role. Even though Evil Morty may seem to have fulfilled his role as an antagonist, I don't believe his story is truly over. Before leaving for his own dimension, Evil Morty says something very interesting to Rick. He calls him different from the other Ricks and hints that this difference might be useful later. This is a clear indication that his arc isn't finished and that he will definitely return. I kinda hope Evil Morty eventually realizes why he sees Rick C-137 as different, because he's a Rick who has grown to care for his family, something Evil Morty never had. Maybe that realization creates tension with our Morty, who gets jealous, prompting Evil Morty to leave and help space better someone else. Besides, Evil Morty running off with the Omega device is a classic Chekhov's gun. He has to come back at some point, and I believe his return will be tied to the Omega device. In any case, I don't think he'll come back as a villain. There's someone else who, in my opinion, would make a much more compelling antagonist in future seasons, and that's none other than Mr. Poopy Butthole. Mr. Poopy Butthole is one of the show's most mysterious and secretive characters. To this day, we don't really know who or what he is. In a 2017 live commentary, Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon jokingly claimed that Mr. Poopy Butthole is an adult Mr. Meeseeks.
Mr. Poopy Butthole, a lot of people don't know, is actually an adult Meeseeks. That's canon.
But this was likely a joke, as the two species are vastly different. The Poop in My Pants episode shows that members of Mr. Poopy Butthole species are not born from a Meeseeks box. Galactic Federation scientists refer to his species as sausage fellas. Initially thought to be the only one of his kind, the discovery of his wife baffled scientists. One even quit their job and moved to an ice planet in response. One Gromflemite even speculated that they might be a type of human. Possible members of the species include Benjamin, Steely, Noob, and Mr. Always Wants to Be Hunted. Their nature is quite interesting. For instance, in Rick and Morty issue 6, Benjamin displayed potent telekinetic powers, deflecting bullets and destroying a rebel army. However, since that part was an in-universe commercial, it's unclear how much of it is canon. Benjamin also levitates himself and others in Rick and Morty issue number 58. Mr. Poopy Butthole and his species are among the few characters known to explicitly break the fourth wall, alongside the Smith family and other meta characters. He's even been shown watching episodes of Rick and Morty and once inserted himself into the show's opening theme. This race has made several appearances in the Rick and Morty comics. According to Lil Poopy Superstar, Sausage Fellas come from a planet nearly identical to Earth, where everyone is a fan of Mr. Poopy Butthole, though this was later revealed to be solely because of his hat. The comic also shows that not all sausage fellas are sausage-shaped. Many have round heads. However, Rick's new hat claims that their species is actually called worm and that they are native to Earth. In the Prime Dimension, the worms lived underground for eons, waiting for the right time to surface and take over. Some, like Elliot Poop, advocated for conquest, while others, like Mr. Poopy Butthole Prime, promoted coexistence with humans and Cronenbergs. Though normally humanoid in appearance, their true form resembles a giant earthworm with several claws. They can devour beings larger than themselves, and some were able to survive atomic bombs. Dan Harmon once proposed a theory that Mr. Poopy Butthole species is similar to memory parasites, but more advanced and less malicious. He suggested that wherever memory parasites are found, sausage fellas are likely to be nearby. According to his theory, they can manipulate memory, inserting themselves into people's recollections. He even described them as fourth-dimensional phantoms, not bound by space, who appear during timeline malfunctions, perception errors, or narrative breakdowns. These extra-dimensional powers explain how Mr. Poopy Butthole can break the fourth wall and communicate with the audience. Mr. Poopy Butthole's life is as fascinating as his origins. He first appeared in the episode Total Rick Call when he was visiting the Smith family during an alien parasite invasion. These parasites implanted fake happy memories in an attempt to take over. To determine who was real, Morty realized that the parasites could only implant good memories, so anyone that had only good memories of was a fake. This led the family to kill several new friends. Beth, questioning Mr. Poopy Butthole's authenticity, shot him in the chest with Rick's laser gun. The rest of the family panicked as he lay bleeding, clearly real and not a parasite. Beth retreated into the kitchen, shaken and emotional, while Mr. Poopy Butthole awaited an ambulance. After the credits sequence, Mr. Poopy Butthole is shown slowly recovering in the hospital. After telling the doctor that he no longer wishes to see the Smiths at that time, the doctor turns to Beth and says, "I'm sorry they never had any bad memories of him." Mr. Poopy Butthole returns in the post-credits scene of the episode The Wedding Squanchers, where he is seen having just watched the episode along with the audience. He then turns to the viewers and discusses the events of the episode. Still recovering from being shot by Beth, he is now walking with a cane. He also swallows what appears to be painkillers by pouring them directly into his mouth without water. He ends the scene by encouraging viewers to tune into Season 3 to see how things will unfold for Rick and the Smith family. He returns yet again in the Season 4 episode One Crew Over the Cuckoo's Morty, where he's a college professor teaching African American women's studies. His first lecture is about Maya Angelou, but it takes a bizarre turn when his students suddenly attack him. He easily defeats them all. Rick and Morty then show up and recruit him for a heist. As part of Randadron's plan, he serves as an auctioneer in a livestock sale. It is later revealed that Rick had paid the students to attack Mr. Poopy Butthole to manipulate him into joining the crew. Rick admits he didn't know if their karate skills were coincidental or somehow connected to their interest in Maya Angelou. Mr. Poopy Butthole expresses regret that being fired for hospitalizing his students prevented him from exploring the question further, and Rick apologizes. In the episode Rick Mariah Jack, Mr. Poopy Butthole is shown living alone in a tiny apartment, lamenting the collapse of his relationship with Amy, something he blames on losing his professor job, courtesy of Rick's meddling. Speaking directly to the audience again, he ponders the idea of becoming evil himself, then encourages viewers to return love to those who love them, all while preparing dinner for one. In Rictional Mortpoon's Rickmas Mortcation, a now muscular Mr. Poopy Butthole is seen watching the episode from a fitness studio. He explains to the audience that he's trying to rebound from his divorce through weightlifting, with help from his trainer, Carl. However, while attempting to lift more than he can handle, he breaks his legs. In a moment of desperation, he cries and uses Carl's phone to call his ex-wife, who had blocked his number. In How Poopy Got His Poop Back, Mr. Poopy Butthole temporarily moves in with the Smith family, much to their annoyance due to his antics and disruptive behavior. The family pressures Rick to stage an intervention. Rick gathers a group including Birdperson, Squanchy, Gearhead, and their neighbor Gene. However, instead of holding the intervention, the group ends up partying at a bar, followed by more wild outings, eventually meeting up with Hugh Jackman and continuing the party at his house. Mr. Poopy Butthole reveals that he hopes to win back Amy with the help of Hugh and Rick's friends, but Rick rejects the idea, leading to an argument. Despite initially leaving, Rick eventually returns to help. They go to Amy's apartment only to discover she's having an affair with Gulkarna, a predator-like private investigator Mr. Poopy Butthole had hired to spy on her after she filed a restraining order against him. Gulkarna begins hunting the group after Mr. Poopy Butthole breaks into Amy's apartment and kidnaps their son, Poopy Jr. During the confrontation, Mr. Poopy Butthole attempts to fight Gulkarna, but is easily overpowered. Ultimately, he stops the fighting when he realizes the poor example he's setting for his son. He fails to reconcile with Amy and parts ways with his family. Afterwards, he takes a fading pill and tells the audience that he intends to work on himself. However, this plan appears to fail. In the Season 7 finale, Fear No Mort, he is revealed to be homeless. Despite this, he manages to acquire a portal gun and travels to a dimension where he is still happily living with his family. He distracts his son and eliminates his alternate self to take his place. Although Mr. Poopy Butthole effectively gets his family back, the swapped hand positions while using utensils make his alternate wife secretly suspicious. I don't believe it's a coincidence that Season 7 of Rick and Morty begins and ends with Mr. Poopy Butthole. The overarching theme of the season is Rick's healing journey, and it's no surprise that the pivotal episode, Unmortricken, appears in the middle of the season rather than at the end, where one might expect it logically. The first half of the season focuses more on finding Rick Prime, while the second half explores the consequences of Rick's obsessive pursuit, how toxic and damaging his unresolved trauma and fixation have become. Mr. Poopy Butthole's appearances throughout the season serve as a powerful counterpoint to Rick's growth. They highlight a character taking a similar emotional pain and going in the opposite direction. From attempting to kidnap his own child to, in the finale's post-credit scene, murdering an alternate version of himself and replacing him to steal his happy life and family, Mr. Poopy Butthole is following a disturbingly dark path. It's an act reminiscent of Rick's old ways, abandoning ruined timelines and jumping into new ones when things fall apart. In this sense, Mr. Poopy Butthole is becoming a twisted reflection of Rick, a person shaped by similar pain but choosing to cope in the most self-destructive ways. He could very well become the embodiment of everything Rick used to be, everything Rick is trying to leave behind. And this sets up what might be Rick's ultimate challenge, not healing himself but helping others, his friends, heal too. Season 7 suggests he might fail at that, and we've seen a glimpse of this possibility before. Flashback to Season 4's Story Train episode. Story-Lord attempts to drain Rick and Morty's limitless story potential, leading to a sequence of strange but compelling foreshadowings. Many of these glimpses have already come true, the fight between Rick and Bird Person, the Star Wars-style duel between Summer and Tammy, but one moment remains especially mysterious: the appearance of Darth Poopy Butthole. In this scene, we see Rick and Morty facing off against a coalition of powerful enemies: Meeseeks, Citadel Guards, male Gazorpians, Evil Morty, and among them, Darth Poopy Butthole. Every other character in that shot is familiar, established, but not this version of Poopy Butthole. We still know nothing about him. It's entirely possible that we are now watching the slow transformation of Mr. Poopy Butthole into that Darth-like figure. His current arc, the failed family, the deception, the identity theft, suggests a descent into madness, and his plan is already unraveling. His new wife suspects something is off, noticing that PB is left-handed while her real husband was not. This slip-up could mark the beginning of a deeper spiral. If this attempt at stolen happiness collapses, it might push Mr. Poopy Butthole further over the edge. He could even surpass Rick in terms of despair and cruelty. There's a possibility he could seek out Evil Morty, perhaps to steal the Omega device, or worse, persuade him to join forces. Such a development could be the catalyst that brings Evil Morty back into conflict with Rick C-137 and Morty Prime. And if that happens, the resulting enemy alliance, Darth Poopy Butthole, Evil Morty, and the forces glimpsed in the Story Train, might prove to be a greater threat than even Rick Prime. Mr. Poopy Butthole has demonstrated alarming potential for darkness. His way of coping with loss and failure is spiraling, and it's only a matter of time before Rick is forced to intervene. The show has subtly laid the groundwork for this transformation over multiple seasons. The seeds are planted. The trajectory is clear. So, who do you think the next major antagonist of the series will be? Is Mr. Poopy Butthole destined to become Rick's greatest mistake or his greatest challenge? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.